At the beginning of the film, a storyteller explains that a girl was given a red-colored hood by her grandmother, a hood she liked so much that she never took it off. That is why she was named Little Red Riding Hood. She loved traveling and longed to explore different places. As a result, she embarked on many adventures, facing a variety of unique situations. Since she was nicknamed Little, we will refer to her as Little. While passing through the jungle, Little encountered a witch who enjoyed performing magic despite its frequent mishaps. The witch confidently told Little, "I can cast magic to change your shoes." But Little replied, "These shoes are fine. I don't want to change them," because she already knew that the witch's magic often went awry. Persistently, the witch tried to convince her, saying, "I know magic very well, and as you travel further, you will need better shoes." Eventually, after the witch's repeated insistence, Little agreed to have her perform magic. However, the spell backfired. Her shoes became filthy and covered in mud, which made Little very angry. While trying to wash the shoes, the water only worsened their condition, deepening her frustration. Later, while searching for her discarded shoes, Little met a girl named Cinderella. Little was surprised at the name, as Cinderella means wrapped in ash. Moreover, Cinderella did not look well. Her clothes were old, she had no proper shoes, and wounds marred her feet. When Little asked, "What are you doing here?" Cinderella explained that her pigeon had died and she had come to bury it. Using her unique power of seeing people's pasts and futures whenever she looked at them, Little discovered that Cinderella had 2 stepsisters and a stepmother who treated her very badly. Cinderella was tortured, given insufficient food, and never provided new clothes. Little recounted all she had learned to Cinderella, whose astonishment quickly turned to tears. Little comforted and encouraged her. Little then informed Cinderella that a dance party was being held that day in the king's palace for the prince. All the girls from the city would attend so that the prince could choose one to marry. However, Little emphasized that the party was exclusively for beautiful girls. Those who were less attractive or in a poor state would not be welcome. Hearing this, Cinderella grew very sad. Meanwhile, her stepsisters and unkind stepmother, who made her work all the time, were seen. One of her stepsisters, known for her constant preoccupation with her appearance, even cutting her hair repeatedly due to a rumor that the prince liked short hair, accidentally dropped a cake while eating. A pigeon snatched the cake, and in anger, the stepsister attacked and killed the pigeon. Cinderella, there to bury the dead pigeon, told Little about her miserable life. Realizing that Cinderella, despite her hardships, still wished to attend the dance party, Little decided to help her. First, one witch arrived and cast a spell on both Cinderella and Little, making them strikingly beautiful and transforming their ragged clothes into magnificent attire. Yet, they had no proper shoes to wear. Then, another witch, whose magic never failed, appeared and bestowed upon them sparkling glass shoes. Shoes that would not fit anyone else, and whose magic would last only 24 hours. This meant that if they attended the dance party, they had to return before midnight. Otherwise, they would revert to their true forms, and their secret would be exposed. Now dressed exquisitely with new clothes and shoes, Cinderella and Little still needed a ride to the palace. The first witch conjured a large pumpkin and a mouse. Through magic, the pumpkin transformed into an elegant carriage, and the mouse was turned into a half-mouse, half-man driver who would take them to the party. As night fell, they set off for the dance party. However, in the middle of the journey, the carriage suddenly halted after colliding with something. When the mouse got out to investigate, he discovered a man lying dead. Alarmed, he shouted that someone had collided with the carriage and died. Cinderella and Little stepped out to examine the body. Little did not recognize the man, but Cinderella identified him as the royal family's barber, the man who cut and styled hair. In that kingdom, many even risked their lives for a haircut, for the barber's work was believed to change one's fate. When Little touched the man, she realized that his death was not recent. It had occurred a long time ago, and his body was deliberately left to make it seem as if he were killed by the carriage. Little worried that if they stopped or alerted the police, it would be too late for them. So, they covered his body with leaves and continued on. Shortly after, as they reached the palace, they encountered another girl standing outside. Because this girl covered her face due to her less attractive appearance, she was not allowed inside. Nonetheless, she managed to slip in, finding herself among many beautiful girls practicing their dance moves in fine clothes. Meanwhile, Cinderella grew anxious that her stepmother and stepsisters, who were also present, might recognize her. Little reassured her, saying that her beauty would prevent anyone from realizing it was really Cinderella. At the party, Cinderella's stepsisters and stepmother were seen. One stepsister inquired of her mother about where the other sister had been. It was known that this younger stepsister repeatedly cut her hair, following the rumor that the prince preferred short hair. Soon the king arrived, and the prince was summoned. The king instructed the prince that he must choose a girl with whom he would dance, thereby indicating that he wished to marry her. However, the prince did not favor any of the girls because he was in love with someone else, even though that girl had been missing for a year. Still, he followed his father's orders and began to approach the girls. Upon seeing Cinderella's beauty, the prince could not resist and extended his hand to her for a dance. Cinderella accepted, and they began dancing. Overjoyed, Cinderella could hardly believe that the prince had chosen her. She had always dreamed that marrying the prince would change her life for the better. The dance was abruptly halted when a palace soldier announced that the royal barber had died. Looking at the corpse, covered with leaves and appearing as if he had been struck by the carriage, everyone instantly suspected that the murderer might be present in the palace. This revelation spread fear among the guests, and Cinderella and Little worried that their own carriage, which might show traces of blood, would expose them. Consequently, Cinderella ordered the rat driver to clean the carriage immediately. However, he was too busy eating his favorite cheese to comply. It was later discovered that pieces of cheese were found near the barber's body, suggesting that the killer was someone fond of cheese. Terrified by the implications, the rat became anxious. Soon, all the guards inspected the carriages and found no evidence of blood. Further investigation revealed that the barber's death was not caused by a carriage collision after all. His death had occurred earlier, and the scene had been arranged to look like an accident. The guards then proceeded to the barber's house, where they uncovered several items, among them long strands of hair from the girls. They reported to the king that the barber had been acting strangely for some time, expressing his dislike for long hair and forcibly cutting it off whenever he saw a girl with long locks. This behavior led many to suspect that in his anger, a girl might have killed him. Hearing this, Cinderella and Little remarked that the case was coming together, since all the girls who had their hair cut would now be summoned. 5 girls, including one of Cinderella's stepsisters, were ordered to stand and answer questions. The king demanded, "When you visited the barber, what happened? Tell us everything honestly. Did his behavior change? Did you, in anger, do something to him?" Cinderella's stepsister was questioned first. She explained, "I went to the barber at 10 a.m., and he forcibly cut my hair, even though I never wanted it cut. He claimed that the prince preferred girls with short hair, so I followed his suggestion." Then she asked the prince, "Do you like short hair? I cut mine according to what you prefer. Does that mean you will marry me?" Soon, other girls with short hair made similar declarations, but the prince quickly denied any such preference. In fact, he asserted that the barber had engineered the whole situation. The same stepsister then added, "Listen to me. I heard more details today. I went to speak with the prince in the morning, and while standing outside, I heard voices from inside. I learned that the prince and the barber had a fierce argument. When the prince was later questioned, he admitted that earlier, the barber had come to his room to change his hairstyle. I saw long hair among the girls, and I asked the barber why he was cutting it. He replied that he hated long hair and would no longer tolerate girls with it. The prince said he had fought with the barber about this. He also claimed that between 1 and 3 o'clock, he was not present but was sitting on a hill. When the king asked if anyone could confirm his alibi, the prince admitted that no one saw him there, which only deepened the suspicions that he might have been involved in the barber's death. It was then revealed that the prince was in love with a girl who, in return, had loved him deeply. However, after he had proposed, she mysteriously disappeared and had been missing for a year. Despite his efforts, the prince had been unable to find her. The prince further explained that the barber had been blackmailing him by threatening, "I will tell your father, the king, everything unless you give me a royal mirror." When the prince refused, the barber became enraged and treated him badly. This gave many a reason to believe that the prince had killed the barber. Consequently, he was arrested and removed from the palace. Then, a thorn fell from the prince's clothes. Little picked it up and deduced that its presence meant he had indeed been in a jungle or mountainous area, thus confirming his claim of having been on a hill. At that moment, the same girl who had been standing outside because she was deemed not beautiful enough to enter arrived to testify on the prince's behalf. She confirmed that she had seen the prince sitting on the hill from 1 to 3 o'clock. Relieved by her testimony, the king exclaimed, "Thank God my son is not a murderer," and the prince was released to return to the palace. However, time was of the essence. As the investigation unfolded, it was nearly midnight. Little and Cinderella became anxious that if they did not leave immediately, the magic would wear off and they would revert to their true forms. So they rushed out of the palace in the carriage. The pursuing prince ran after them, trying to stop Cinderella, but she kept running. In her haste, she slipped on the stairs. One of her shoes came off, and with time running short, she continued on without it. Once they had escaped, the magic finally expired at midnight, and their original appearances, including Cinderella's injured feet, were revealed, leading to her arrest. Later that night, as Cinderella returned home with Little, the injustice became clear. While her stepmother and stepsisters lived comfortably, Cinderella was confined to a small, shabby part of the house. Later, Little heard voices and followed them to discover Cinderella's other stepsister, the one known for her voracious appetite who had not even attended the party. She was hiding from the guards, who suspected her of killing the barber. This stepsister began to recount her story. "The barber had summoned me, instructing that I get my hair cut. When I arrived, someone attacked me from behind. I fainted. When I came to, I found a stone in my hand and saw the barber's corpse before me. I immediately assumed that, being alone, I must be blamed." Tearfully, she admitted her fear and explained that, in her terror, she had dragged the corpse into the jungle and waited for a carriage so that when it came, she could dispose of the body by making it appear that it had been struck by the carriage. Little listened intently, but by then the guards had apprehended the stepsister. Pleading, she said, "I have told you everything. Please tell them I did not kill the barber." Although Little privately believed in her innocence, she allowed the guards to take her away because of her unruly behavior. As the stepsister was being led off, a fragment of a glass shoe fell from her clothes. Little picked it up and then spoke to a palace officer. "Take me to the barber's house," she instructed, "so I can uncover more clues to solve this case." At the barber's house, Little discovered additional evidence. Not only were there blood drops, some of which were not the barber's, but also large hair clasps scattered everywhere. Using her power to glimpse into people's pasts and thoughts, she pieced together more details and asked the officer, "Help me solve this case." The next day, while Cinderella was working at home, the prince arrived with his guards. The officer presented Cinderella with a glass fragment, the missing part of a shoe. He explained that every girl in the city was being checked with this shoe because they were trying to identify the one who had attended the party the previous night, the one the prince had chosen for marriage. When Cinderella tried on the shoe, it fit perfectly, and everyone realized she was the chosen one. The prince then moved toward her. Overjoyed that Little had unraveled the truth, Cinderella began to confess. She claimed that the barber had approached her because he saw how beautiful her hair was and declared that it needed to be cut. He had deceived her by promising that he would enhance her beauty, but when she arrived at his house, he picked up the scissors. Incensed, she attacked him from behind with a stone, so forcefully that he died. Fearing that she would be caught, she decided to shift the blame onto her stepsister. She sent a letter summoning her stepsister to the barber's house, and when the stepsister arrived, Cinderella attacked her from behind, causing her to faint. To seal the deception, she placed the stone under her stepsister's hand so that, upon regaining consciousness, it would appear that the stepsister was guilty. Cinderella also mentioned a small fragment of a glass shoe. Once, a witch had approached her because her old shoes were in bad condition and had given her new glass shoes. While fleeing through the jungle, one of the shoes broke and a fragment fell off. Later, as she was burying the broken shoe along with the pigeon, Little encountered her. Afterward, another witch cast a spell to change their clothes. And although their clothing became new, the shoes did not, prompting yet another witch to supply them with new shoes. In this way, Little cleverly solved the case and uncovered crucial evidence about the true culprit. When the magic finally wore off, Cinderella's injured feet betrayed her secret, leading to her arrest. The prince, astonished, asked Little, "How do you know so many things? How did you solve this case?" Little replied, "That's not all." She then confided in the prince about his missing friend, the girl he loved who had disappeared a year ago. "When I visited the barber's house," Little explained, I noticed blood drops that did not belong to Cinderella. They were old. From that, I deduced that your friend had also been there. She was attacked when someone tried to cut her hair with scissors, and when she fought back, her hair was cut and she sustained a deep nail injury. This injured girl, known as Surat, was the one barred from the palace after she had seen you on the mountains. She later admitted that she distanced herself from you because she believed you would not accept her, even though you once loved her. Chepkar Tabo, Prince replied, "But I have always loved you, and your appearance has never mattered." Yet Surat insisted, "I am not worthy of you. I no longer even love you." Little then asked, "If you did not love the prince, why were you on the mountains that day?" This question revealed that, in fact, Surat still loved the prince. Eventually, the prince and Surat were reunited and married, while Little received heartfelt thanks for solving the case before setting off on yet another adventure. And with that, this amazing film reached its end. I hope you enjoyed this refined version of the script. Perhaps you'd like to explore more about how folklore elements, such as those in Cinderella and Little Red Riding Hood, are interwoven in modern storytelling, or delve into the symbolism behind the magical objects. Let me know what sparks your interest next.